Hello, everyone. Welcome to Dweeb Reviews Loki, Episode 2, The Variant. I'm Mitch. I'm joined today by Cole. How's it going, Cole?
All right, not bad. Good to be here. How you doing, Mitch?
Doing great, man. Excited again that the second episode came out. It's coming out Wednesdays. That works well for us because it allows us to record the same day that it comes out. And yeah, the second episode didn't miss a beat with me. I like the pace they're moving at. I like the direction they're heading. Of the three Marvel shows we've seen so far, immediately off the bat, this one has me the most captivated. How are you feeling about it?
Yeah, exact same. Like, I mean, I feel Owen Wilson brings like a solid foundation, like, because everyone loves Owen Wilson pretty much. But I don't know. Yeah, just this show out of the three that we've watched has definitely got me the most as well.
I have to say he's definitely fun. I'm really happy to have him as a part of the MCU now. I don't know how far this role as Mobius in the TVA will extend, if it'll go into movies or anything like that. But just having him as a part of it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, I doubt it'll go into movies,
Yeah,
but it may give us new faces and or characters to go off of into movies.
maybe. All right, so you know, I think the what we're gonna do is gonna be really similar to last week. We'll briefly recap the episode, mainly to kind of remind ourselves in the audience of the main talking points, and then discuss those points before we kind of speculate how the direction may go into episode 3. So,
Mhm.
this episode's really straightforward. It starts off immediately, and Loki is a part of the team that's going to be moving to these nexus points where there is some sort of divergence from the sacred timeline, and he's going to be kind of there. It's kind of like a
I was about to
consultant
say,
for law enforcement. So if you think about like TV shows where they've done this before, because number one, they don't actually do this in law enforcement, but for in TV shows, it's something like Bones or
mhm,
Castle,
the psychic
Psych.
detective,
Yeah,
psych.
Psych,
Mhm.
where they bring in kind of the outside consultant because the cops can't figure out how to solve this crime, and that's very
Yep.
much what they're doing with Loki here. So yeah, they start off at a Renaissance fair. That was kind of fun in the 80s. And
Hmm.
immediately the girl's like, you guys are dressed wrong for this. But
Yeah. This means something to some of us, or something like that.
I mean, really, it's prefaced by there's an initial team that's seeking out this origin point of this variant timeline.
Yeah. They're basically
And
throwing squad after squad after this variant.
yes,
It's like,
and we see that Loki's using kind of his possession power, or he says enchantment, so it's perhaps he's not actually possessing them so much as just, brain controlling them, brainwashing them. But he seizes control of one of the actual TVA soldiers. There's fights, and then cloaked Loki, who is revealed to be what you guessed in the last episode, actually. Lady
mhm.
Loki, later on, spoilers.
Well, based off of your comic book insight,
Yeah,
I
well.
was like, oh yeah, for sure.
So, Lady Loki then steals this TVA agent, kidnaps her, and then that's where we start off. So, Mobius, Loki, their team deploy. Loki's being his trickster self and trying to like lead on that he knows more than he actually does, just to try to
Hmm.
kind of sounds like to bargain a meeting with the timekeepers. His main
Yeah.
thing is that he wants to bargain a meeting with the timekeepers, and Mobius more or less calls him on his scheme, saying, "What, you think you can charm the timekeepers into giving you control of the TVA?" And he
Yeah.
was kind of like, "Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking."
Yeah.
So,
So, but like he doesn't even really have a plan beyond that, it seems
no,
like.
yeah,
Like he just recognizes this place as the most powerful, I don't know, place, if
entity
you could
or
call it a
something,
place in the
yeah.
universe, using time stones as paperweights.
Yeah,
And
the
so
thing
he,
even says, "Is this the greatest power in the universe?" in the previous
yeah.
episode, right?
Hmm. So he's just trying to get to the top dogs, and we really don't know what his plan is after that.
Yeah, beyond that, you're right.
Yeah.
So Mobius sees through this, seems to know him well, and then the episode is just, there it's a failure. He tried to trick them. They don't trust him anymore. They call him back to the TVA. He gets put on some bureaucratic assignment. He tries to look up the files on the creation of the universe, the timekeepers, the end of the universe, what happens, everything that you would actually be curious of if you were put in that position. And it
Hmm.
turns out the only thing he's actually approved to read is his own sacred timeline. So he discovers about Ragnarok,
Ragnarok.
about the end of Asgard,
Hmm.
and it leads him onto a clue. And this was actually, I thought, if you look at this in the perspective of stories of time travel, I thought this was actually a pretty unique twist that they threw into kind of classic time travel storylines. Because, almost every story about time travel sets up a couple different situations. One, where the
The
main
butterfly
character
effect.
faces a younger version of themselves or their family, or
Hmm.
two, a paradox. Almost always they're like, oh, we've created a paradox. Loki's his own grandfather, if you think about Fry from Futurama,
Futurama.
right?
I was thinking the same
so,
thing.
so there's always something like that. I mean, even Back to the Future, they have the paradox of if he doesn't get his parents together, he's not going to exist anymore. And I
Hmm.
figured that's what they would go for with this, but it seems like instead they got to use kind of this variance detection system that the TVA used that they kind of set up in the previous episode. They set up
Hmm.
more in the beginning of this episode and immediately devise a way to get around being detected by hiding in apocalypses, which means he has
Hmm.
to jump kind of constantly, has to jump timelines right before some major event's going to happen, and then he can just jump back to the same time over and over again or to a different time. And that was kind of
Yeah.
cool. They showed like Pompeii,
Yeah,
Loki
that was cool.
revealing himself and telling them that a volcano was about to explode and nothing
Yep.
actually changed.
Nothing changed. So,
Yeah.
and it also showed that the what TVA, um, you know, didn't know about this little trick.
Yes,
Yeah,
and
it's a hole in their security.
I don't know if you gave this any thought, but it was a major point that popped up to me. We also learned that the TVA and the people of the TVA are not people. They were actually created to fulfill that one role. It's not like they're all time variants themselves and they were collected and put on assignment. It would
No, they
seem,
were created by the god lizards.
yeah, but it would seem that in the previous episode when I can't remember the character's name, but the guy that had all the Infinity Stones in his drawer, it would
Yeah.
seem when he said that he's worked behind that desk his whole life, he's actually worked behind his desk his whole life. And Mobius himself
Yeah.
has a magazine of jet skis, but has never ridden a jet ski nor been in a circumstance where he could ride a jet ski. And it seems like all of them were specially crafted to fulfill their one role.
Yeah,
So
they all have a purpose. Like
yeah,
what Mobius and Loki had a philosophical conversation
mm-hmm.
of just, kind of touching on God, but like just the world and where they come from.
Yeah.
And it just kind of solidified. They kind of made it clear in the first episode too, but solidified their origins that they were created for
Yeah,
the TA.
specifically for the TVA, but they are
TVA.
real people and they do have their own wants and their own desires and their own, dreams, which is interesting. It's interesting that one, the timekeepers presumably aren't human, but
They're
they but
entities.
they created humans to run the TVA.
Hmm.
So we don't know if these are the originators of the universe, if they created humans and Kree and all the other aliens or
Yeah.
what. It
Well, it just
does,
shows that humans are the most favorite out of all the races in the
which
universe.
is true in DC comics. In Marvel comics, they have a lot of like parallel universes too. In DC comics, there's 52 universes, and they all have Earth as the center of the multiverse. But
Hmm.
it's just an interesting concept. It's an interesting concept behind what the TVA actually is because Mobius seems like a human, but he might not be. We don't really know. We just know he's an entity
Yeah.
created to fulfill this one particular role. And
Hmm.
Loki, there's even some back and forth where he talks about, well, the heck, the gods of Asgard sound exactly like your timekeepers in your TVA, and he talks about things like that. We do get some really good back and forth between him and Owen Wilson's Mobius in this episode. But ultimately, the important things are once they verify that apocalypses can hide time variance detection levels,
Mm-hmm.
They discover, based off of the candy wrapper from the previous episode, what time and what apocalyptic setting they think that the enemy variant of Loki is
Is
hiding
hiding.
out at.
Yeah.
We go to that scene. It's it's the year 2050. It's right before a hurricane knocks out like a Walmart style
Type
store.
place. It's like all of some state or something. I don't
Yeah,
know.
and
Anyway,
it's in Alabama. It's like on the beach in
Alabama
Alabama.
does it. Yeah.
And this hurricane kills all these people in this one place, which is why he's or she, sorry, is there. And it leads up to the encounter with Loki. Mind you, a kind of important part here is I don't remember her name, but the leader of the TVA's tactical
Yeah, I
forces,
don't either.
the girl that was at constant odds with Loki in the previous episode, she
Mm-hmm.
insists that she be the one to supervise Loki during the mission. So he goes off with her separate from Mobius.
Mm-hmm.
Mobius and Mobius's team find the TVA agent that was missing initially. Uh, it's not really clear what she's freaked out about, but she is really freaked out about something happening. And I
Yeah.
think it
It
alludes to kind of how this episode concludes and that she knew that what Lady Loki, we'll just call her that, or her
mhm.
goal was with the time divergence that
Yeah.
they did kind of at
Or
the end.
it could just be her coming out of a long state of enchantment.
Yeah, who knows,
Yeah,
right?
okay. Yeah.
But she's freaking out, and then we get the flash to Lady Loki in the enchantment form possesses the TVA agent that's supervising Loki.
Mm-hmm.
Loki and her kind of have a one-on-one. The enchantment runs its course as she transfers to a guy named Randy, and then Randy drops out of enchantment to reveal Lady Loki, who
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if this character herself wants to be called Loki or not, because there is a brief scene when she's
Mm-hmm.
possessing Randy where she says, "Don't call me
Don't call
that,
me
just
that.
call me
Mm-hmm.
Randy." I
Yeah.
don't know what's gonna happen with that,
Well, it
but
was Randy
ultimately,
because the name tag of the guy she was,
yeah.
you know,
But
enchanting at the time.
is
But she
this
doesn't
like
like the name Loki. We know that.
is this like she actually doesn't identify with Loki, or is this look? It's gonna confuse the audience if the villain's name is Loki too, so we're gonna come up with a different name for her.
Well, this is my theory going forward that you know more about the comics, Mitch, but there's the Enchantress that Loki's worked with in numerous or comics, and I'm wondering if they're going to give her the Enchantress name.
You have her the Enchantress title.
Yeah,
Enchantress Marvel, huh? See, I know the Enchantress, the DC character, but
is
you're
there?
right. Yeah,
Yeah.
Enchantress in
Hmm.
Marvel, powerful sorceress that has worked alongside Loki. Yep.
Yeah,
Yeah, that may be. Her name is Amora. Amora is the character's
more.
name. So
But yeah,
maybe that
but in
that
the
could be
comics
who this is.
they're two separate people, but I don't know her origin story.
Yeah, or
But in this show, it's Loki.
yeah, it very well could be. I mean, she does have the look of Lady Loki, though. She does have the horned helm with only one horn, which is how Lady Loki appears in the Jane Foster Thor comics.
Mm.
And once again, that kind of ties us back to what we talked about the last episode, which is um, when you and I suspected that the villain be actually Lady Loki, we were curious about the setup and if this show was going to set up the villain for Jane Foster's Thor, which they've already said out of character that Thor Love and Thunder is going to be Chris Hemsworth's last role as Thor, and that Jane Foster will take over the possession of, or not possession, but the possession of Mjolnir, the powers of Thor. Of course, previously played by Natalie Portman. Whether or not she plays it moving forward, I don't know. But previously played by Natalie Portman, that character will become Thor. That obviously does happen in the comics. That's around the same time that Lady Loki becomes the villain for that Thor series, or at least a villain within that Thor series. I'm curious, is this show the transition from Tom Hiddleston Loki to a Lady Loki character so that that character can then play the villainous role or a supporting character role under a Jane Foster Thor? That's what has
Right.
me a little curious. I'm not
That
quite sure.
Yeah, I think that's quite very possible because Marvel's trying to introduce this new ragtag Avengers
Yeah,
team, whatever it may look like.
and I think there's multiple reasons for it. I think they want to give conclusion to a lot of the characters that we've already spent 20 something movies with now. But I think also that you know, they're a business and it's cheaper to hire new faces into
Yeah.
new
Well,
roles.
they're
It,
going to keep
just
going.
is.
Plus, the actors want out of it, even
Yeah,
though.
that's true.
Yeah.
The actors age out of roles, and then
hmm
additionally, after Infinity War with an all new cast moving forward, they don't start from square zero, but they do take a step back when they start the new storylines because now there's not the same connection with the characters that the audience has already established. They're kind of introducing new characters, and they have to like re-earn the audience, re-win them back when they make
Exactly.
these new films. So it'll be interesting. Now, this character specifically, though, and her motives are something I'd like to talk with you about because
Yeah. Still
in
unclear.
it's pretty unclear. Yeah, there's the final scene, there's a fight between her and Loki, and I just want to talk about this cuz I don't know if they're going to explain it further. They talk about in this episode that Loki is the most common variant that they
Yeah.
encounter. It would seem that most times when they
hmm
encounter a variant,
Yeah.
it's
They showed a
Loki.
buff Loki. They
Yeah,
showed, yeah.
exactly. And they showed all these different variants of Loki, and they treated it similar to like a multiverse version of Loki. Like, oh, this is buff Loki, and
hmm
this is
But it
I
is
they
not a multiverse
they did have
or
like a
parallel
girl
universe.
Loki. They had a Loki in the full like Viking wear. They had a Loki in different outfit. But we have to remember that this isn't a multiverse. In fact, they established in the first episode that there's one sacred timeline, and that variants are when a particular character in that timeline starts to, for whatever reason, act contrary to what the sacred timelines agreed upon story is. And Loki's the one that varies. So these characters, these different variations of Loki, they're all our Loki. They're all our
hmm
Loki that we already know from the films. And any variation, like when he becomes buff, if he gets a second head, if he becomes Lady Loki, that's
Yeah.
all something that happens
After.
after they varied from the sacred timeline. It's not like, oh no, this Loki was born to a race of fat Asgardians, and this Loki was born to a race of red Asgardians. It's
Yeah. No.
it's no, it's the same Loki. He's just chosen different forms
hmm
as he's
As the variant.
which
Once he's, yeah, separates from our
yes,
timeline. And we don't know where this Lady Loki came from timeline wise either.
exactly. Now I
Like, could
I
it be in the
predicted in the
past, the future?
yes, and I predicted in the last episode that this was going to be the future version of this variant timeline
hmm
Loki, our Loki. We'll see still, we don't know. But it kind of hinted that it probably wasn't that cuz she had the opportunity to reveal that to Loki, and seems they instead have the banter of like which Loki's the superior Loki, which wouldn't make sense if you were talking to your
hmm
past self. You'd be like,
Well,
"No, we're the
this
same Loki." But
this is
they
only the second episode.
it's
I mean,
true. It's true.
there's a lot of room
But
for a lot of possibilities.
but
She
the
could,
initial
like,
conversation does not support
right. No,
my
but
initial theory. It
they
doesn't mean
they
I'm
want to leave
wrong.
some bombs for us for sure.
Yeah,
Like, she did leave that, time portal open
long enough for
intentionally
him to go through.
for
Yeah,
him to go through,
that's true.
which maybe she does know this is her past self,
Maybe.
and he becomes her in some way, and that's part of her manipulation, because that's
Yeah.
what Loki does. He
So
manipulates.
so maybe it
But who
could be
knows?
true, but there's a scene or there's a line during the scene where they're fighting where Loki says, "I wouldn't do this to myself," as he's getting hit and beat up. And because we have to remember that this is not some alternate universe Loki, this does still stem from the sacred timeline Loki. There might there might be something to that. There might be something to the fact of, oh, I wouldn't do this to myself, and this is me. So there's something else going on here that might be revealed to us in a future episode. I don't know.
For sure.
It's definitely interesting.
hmm
Overall, I liked it, but yeah, did you have any sort of questions or anything that really piqued your interest? Something that you think we might find out more, or that may have hinted to something in
Well, I
future
mean,
episodes?
a lot of questions going forward, right? Like, just what's going to happen. Basically, what is Lady Loki's end game,
Mhm.
or with creating these multiverses stemming off all crazy directions. Um, yeah, that's what the explosion did. It made all these, I don't know if you want to call them multiverses or whatever, but stems,
Variant
that
timelines.
variant timelines, thank
Yes.
you, that the VTA or TVA
Yeah,
um,
TVA.
has been trying to prevent. And yeah,
Yeah,
just don't know her
it
end game
looks
though.
like right major variations from the timeline, and I get that. I can see that maybe the overall story here will be kind of breaking the timekeeper's hold on the sacred timeline, because one thing that they also touch on in a brief conversation between Loki and Mobius is the timekeepers, what they're doing, what's the whole purpose of this sacred timeline, and what's going to happen when they're over.
Hmm.
Mobius believes that the timekeepers are not done forging the sacred timeline yet. And
Right.
he believes wholeheartedly in the sacred timeline, and he's down with the cause, down with the mission. Now, as we mentioned before, he was also created to do this. So, what his agency and free will is in this, I don't really know.
It's limited.
Yeah,
It's limited for sure.
but but
Yeah.
it's
Mhm.
possible that Lady Loki is just kind of a rebel against the idea of these three gods deciding that one timeline is the correct timeline. And it's possible that she wants to create these variants just to sow chaos, right? Because that's
Yeah.
what she is, the god of chaos, god of mischief.
Right. And also Mobius like hasn't alluded at all to Loki that he can get back in the timeline.
No, you're right. He's
So,
not made a promise that he'll get an audience with the timekeepers either. And
yeah.
we
But
actually learned.
he hasn't even said that that's kind of possible. Like, oh, these people can make it happen. He's saying it's impossible.
But Loki keeps telling Mobius that's what he wants. And
Hmm.
Mobius has not told him no. He's not told him yes, he's not told him no. But he does reveal that he's never met the timekeepers when he has the
True,
conversation with
true.
that judge lady.
But just based off the first episode, we got the impression that it was pretty impossible for him to go back into
Yes.
the timeline.
Yeah. For him to go back, it seems fairly impossible. Kinda, sorta. Because remember, when he travels back in time, he is in the sacred timeline. And he traveled to Pompeii and they did the whole test where it was proven that they did not create an alternate timeline operating in a apocalyptic
True.
setting. So
So he
it would
could like
hint.
cut a deal with the god lizards,
Yep.
saying, "Hey, I'm just gonna go back in time and then take the space stone and teleport somewhere."
Or he could destroy the TVA and nobody could stop him from returning back to his timeline. That's the other thing
Oh.
too. Is
Mm.
it's only the TVA is the enforcement branch of the timekeepers. It doesn't seem that the timekeepers are actually doing anything themselves, or if they're even real. We've not seen them yet. We don't know. We just know the TVA exists, and we know that the TVA is destructible because they're being killed right now
Right.
by Loki, by
Hmm.
Lady Loki. So it definitely raises an interesting concept. There's a lot of kind of metaphysical aspects that this series has already brought in only episode 2 about what's going to happen from here. It's really exciting, man.
Yeah, totally. Can't wait to see what happens next with Loki entering that new time portal that Lady Loki left open for him.
Yeah. This
And
is, to be honest, while there were some things that I expected, like the reveal of, Lady Loki, I did not expect for him to separate from Mobius so quickly
yeah, same here.
and to potentially partner up with evil Loki so quickly.
Hmm.
So we'll see what's going to happen here. This next episode is going to be a big reveal. We still don't know why the heck Lady Loki even kidnapped the other TVA agent at the beginning, short of she wanted them to come find her, maybe, but that didn't help them locate her. Nothing to do
Right.
with the girl being kidnapped helped them locate her.
Yeah. You could
She
say
knew
she acted as a distraction,
maybe,
meanwhile trying to get her hands on Loki to follow her. Who
but
knows?
she does say to Mobius, the agent, I mean, that she told her where to find the timekeepers.
Hmm.
So we may now get conversation between Loki and Lady Loki in this next episode about hey, this is my plan. We're launching an attack on the Timekeepers, which is what it would seem she's probably interested in.
Hmm.
I don't know, man. We'll see, but I'm very excited moving forward.
Yeah, same here.
All
Um,
right.
Rating the show real fast. What would you say, Mitch?
This
From
episode
1 to
improves for
10.
me. So in the last episode, I think I gave it an 8.5. This was a solid 9 for me. Solid 9 out of 10. I liked it. We're heading in a good direction. While some things were predictable, other things were not. I would say that while the reveal of Lady Loki was very predictable, the end of this episode was not predictable. And now moving forward, I just have a lot of questions, and I don't really see the thorough line. I'm not quite sure on where this is gonna go from here. And we're only on the second episode.
Yeah. Yeah, just I agree. Probably 8.5 to 9 just because we have so many questions that need answering and that's what's keeping us engaged with this
Yeah.
whole TVA and Lady Loki. Very exciting.
I mean, it's an absolute change of pace from Falcon and the Winter Soldier. We've had 2 episodes with little to no action.
Hmm.
Some basic hand to hand, but no
Yeah.
god power, knife fighting, anything like that for 2 whole
Hmm.
episodes. Whereas Falcon and the Winter Soldier was heavily reliant on big budget combat scenes.
Hmm.
So pretty
Yep.
interesting,
Back to
pretty cool.
back, back to back, right
Mm-hmm.
right in the beginning and everything. And this is still, keeping a fast pace too. I
Yeah,
mean, big big plot turns every episode, which is awesome.
yeah, absolutely. So, all right, yeah, I'm really excited for next week. We're gonna do this again and see what happens with Loki. And for you guys watching, please, comment down below with any questions you might have, any theories you might have on what's gonna happen going forward. But yeah, man, I'm excited.
Same.
All right, guys, thank you for watching Tweet Reviews Loki. We'll catch you again next week.
Later, guys. Thank you.